ready to record a podcast. What's going on, video viewers, podcast video viewers? Hope you guys are doing amazing. You're now behind the scenes of the YFYI podcast. Just getting my audio ready to roll. Getting my audio queued up. Ready to rock and roll. Hopefully you guys been enjoying the video version before I get started on the audio, before I start recording. Always like to spend a couple of minutes with you, the video viewers. You guys that are consuming the content, both maybe audio through your earbuds, phones, pods, or whatever you're listening to, and through video. I just started recording the video because I thought it would be a way for some people, if they like to see the person behind the sound. I don't know if that's you. If you're watching this, probably. So I decided to do that. And we've been getting some views on on Facebook, on the Facebook page. I've been sharing the video podcast on Facebook. So if you've been watching on Facebook, I appreciate that. If you've been watching, maybe you haven't been watching on Facebook. Maybe you have been watching on YouTube. So if you've been watching the YFYI podcast on YouTube or Facebook, I appreciate either of those. But if you're viewing the podcast in video format, thank you. That's why I'm doing it. If you're listening, thank you. So this little behind the scenes footage, checking out the setup in here. Got the little cameras going on. Got the backdrop going on, which looks kind of crazy. Right now I'm using a little filter. Got multimedia going on, so I got a little extra camera happening on the Snap Chizat. If you're watching this clip, the YFYI podcast is about to begin. But yeah, thank you guys on the video for watching. Definitely your comments, your feedback, things you like, things you want to see. I've got some long anticipated interviews that I'm getting ready to start doing. And I'm going to start with the interviews with my team, so you can get to meet the characters, the machine behind the machine, the engine, the components of the Salon 1.0. So you guys will get to meet some of our peeps in the very near short future. I'm going to be doing a podcast interview actually tomorrow. So that's going to be kind of exciting. So without further ado, let's get rolling in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, what's going on out there, guys? You are now listening to the YFYI podcast. I'm your host here, Sunny D. Hopefully you guys are having an amazing week, an amazing month. We're cruising on through. We're already in the month of May. I know it's hard to believe. Want to give you some encouragement. The year, my friends, is coming up on halftime, but that means that you have a whole another 6 months to make a dent and to make some damage, to mark off some goals, to hit some targets. You have an entire 6 months coming once we hit halftime of 2018 to make things happen. And so that's a little bit of encouragement, because I mean, for a lot of us, we're thinking, man, this year is flying by. I haven't done shit. I haven't got close to my goals. Or where did the time go? Or maybe you've been checking off so many goals, you're like, oh my God, it's like going amazing. I don't know where you're at right now as you're listening to this. Where you're at mentally. I don't know where you're at physically. I don't know where you're at spiritually. I don't know where you're at financially. I don't know where you're at professionally as you're listening to this. But I know one thing. Halftime is coming, which means you still have a whole nother half. Now, for some people, that's like, you're like, thank God or whatever, right? For some of you. But for some of you, you might be like, oh, thank God in one of two ways, that it's almost half over or that I have another half to tighten up. So whatever it is, we're going to talk about a couple approaches today on the YFYI podcast. If you're a repeat listener, welcome back to the YFYI podcast. If you're new to the YFYI podcast, if you just found out about the podcast, maybe you stumbled upon it in the podcast app, maybe you saw a post on Facebook, maybe somebody shared, something with you on Instagram, maybe you heard me talk about it at a recent event, a live event, however you heard about the YFYI podcast, however you came to be a part of the YFYI podcast. Thank you guys for being here. This podcast I do each and every week, and this podcast goes in conjunction with YFYI, your first year in the beauty industry, how to not just survive but thrive. My first book, my debut book as an author, also the latest book that I just released, YFYI for salon owners. If you guys don't have a copy of this one yet, I'm going to encourage you to get yourself one, YFYI Salon Owners, where I dig into the first year in the industry as an owner. That's a whole nother animal. That's a whole nother beast. That's a whole nother dragon that you have to learn how to slay. So these episodes, they kind of go in conjunction because, what happens is your career, your industry, our industry, the beauty industry, and probably your industry too, if you're not in the beauty industry. That's kind of an interesting thing I've been discovering here lately. Got a lot of people that are listening to the podcast that are not in the beauty industry, and they stumbled upon it. They're like, well, I'm not in the beauty industry. I don't know if this really, applies to me. And really, one of the first endorsements that I ever got for YFYI was from at the time, I think he was just the president of Paul Mitchell, Luke Jacob Ellis. I think now he might actually be the CEO of Paul Mitchell. We'll have to fact check that. But he said this would be great for any first years in any industry because the principles cross over. It's not like a haircut isn't going to pertain to somebody that's doing coding or somebody that's making a widget in a factory or somebody that's, doing whatever they're doing in another industry. But a business principle can cross over from one business to the next. If it's a business principle, building a business principle, looking at how to go approach your career and your first year, the pitfalls are very similar industry to industry to industry. So I thought that was kind of cool. That was, what he had said when he got one of the very first copies ever. And he's not a hairstylist. And that's why I sent him the first copy, because I wanted to know. This is a business book. I'm writing business books, and obviously being in the beauty industry, they're geared towards people in the beauty industry, but really they're geared towards people that are trying to build a business, whether they're first year in. Maybe you're an accountant in your first year in as an accountant. What does that look like? Or your first year in, as a stylist, or your first year in as a teacher, or your first year in as I don't know, what are you doing? Whatever you're doing. The first year is a bitch. That's the punchline. And you're going to have to navigate through it. In any career, there's always going to be those beginning times, sometimes we call like the hard times. We call the difficult times. We call the times when we're wondering, like, did I make the right decision? Did I make the right choice? Did I make the right choice, or did I make a mistake? And what happens, we see a lot of people end up quitting and leaving, changing careers. Just look at the statistics on college degrees. How many people, I think it's something like less than 40% of people are working in the field in which they got their degree in. Why is that? Did they get fired up about getting the degree and then lose their passion in that first year? Maybe they didn't have the tools necessary. I think no matter what industry you're in, you should think about it. Whatever industry you're in, think about it. If you're an accountant, you should be writing YFYI for accountants. If you're in, bartending, a career bartender, you should be writing YFYI for bartenders. If you're, a lawyer, you should be writing YFYI for lawyers. If you're a dentist, you should be writing YFYI for dentists. If you're a massage therapist, you should be writing YFYI for massage therapists. Whatever industry you're in, if you've had any traction, level of success, you've made it beyond that first, 12 to 18 months and you're on your way, you have knowledge that you could then take and share with those new people, because every industry, needs a helping hand, especially in the beginning. When you leave school and you don't have your professors or your teachers or whoever it is around you anymore, and the rubber meets the road, you're going to need some help. So I think you guys should be thinking about that if you're out there and you're in another industry. Now, here's the deal. YFYI, which is my trademark, my hashtag. You might have to think how you're going to word that, unless you want to pay a little royalty, right? Right? But you should, no, all jokes aside, seriously though, you should think about that. And so this podcast, because it's dynamic and it's always changing the industry, I do this podcast so I can go through some of the ideas, the questions, the things, the concepts out loud, and answer questions that I get, when I'm on the road and people ask me things. And if you guys follow me on Instagram, you see some of the manifestations of the thoughts that come through and some of my content on there, whether it be like the Rolling with the D video show that I share, the 1 minute rants, any of my posts, you can see there's a theme, right? There's a theme there, because ultimately motivation, inspiration, education, that's what I'm about. And when I think about the motivation, sometimes that word, I have a weird relationship with that word, because I'm not like a motivational speaker, but what I am is I'm a person that can maybe get people to move and take action. So if that's a motivational speaker, whatever, all right? We're not gonna fight over the word, but I will tell you that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get people to move. I'm trying to get people to take action. I'm trying to get people to make decisions. I'm trying to get people to stop contemplating. I'm trying to suffocate people's excuses, because people have tons of excuses of why they're not winning, why they're not succeeding, why they didn't do what they said they were going to do when they said they were going to do it. I'm trying to suffocate all the excuses so you have no excuses left but to be successful. Right? You have no options really. There's nothing else. There's nothing else you can bring to the table. It's time to be successful. And I think, when I share my story with people, I think that helps people see that as well. I think when I'm sharing my story, with people, and I'm, traveling and I'm going here, doing this, doing that, I think through that, as I'm sharing my story with people, I think what people hear and what people find out is they're like, man, this guy, he was a total screw up, and he's, had some level of success, whatever that looks like. I can do it too. And that's what I want people to take away. That's what I want people to see. That's what I hope that people are getting. That's what I hope, when people are listening to my content, when people are listening to the YFY podcast, when people are reading my books, I'm hoping that will be what they're taking away, is that if he can, I can too. And that's the voice that I want to be. And so that's why hopefully you're here. That's why hopefully you're listening to the YFY podcast today. And that's why I continue to do the YFY podcast, and hopefully do not disappoint you. So thanks again for being a part of the YFY movement. So a couple things I want to talk about today, and hopefully this will be some fuel for your tank as you're moving in, you know, through the month of May, and you're looking at where you're at right now, where you're going. Now, I'm a big promoter of going hard. I'm a big promoter of pushing hard, pushing the envelope. I'm a big promoter of working your ass off. I'm a big promoter of all in, the all in attitude, going all in on everything that you do. I'm a big promoter of that. But here's another thing that I need to promote, and I'm gonna explain it as I go through, but I need to promote this. I need to promote doing less. Now, when I say that, it kind of sounds like an extreme opposite of just going all in, doing everything you can, push, grind, hustle. But doing less better. Now, let me explain. You have so many hours in a day, 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week. You have about 4 weeks in a month. You have about 12 months in a year. Now, in your time that you have, doing less better, what that means is doing fewer things, but doing those fewer things really well. Doing those fewer things really well. Going all in on those fewer things. Going all in on those few things that will make the biggest difference in your day. Because when you wake up in the morning and you look at your to-do list, right? And you've got like 10 things on your list. You've got 10 things on your to-do list. You've got still the same 24 hours in a day. If you wake up in the morning and you've got 20 things on your to-do list, you still got the same 24 hours in a day. You wake up in the morning and you got one thing on your to-do list, you still got 24 hours in a day. But when you start to look at that to-do list, and I'm guilty of this too, taking on too many things in a day, and it becomes overwhelming, and then you actually get less done. So if you wake up in the morning and you get your list ready to go, then from that list, realistically, what are you going to actually get done? Like, as you know, say 3 of those things are not related to like the workplace. They're gonna occur outside of the workplace. So now when you're looking at outside of the workplace, if you're in the workplace, for some of us, we're in the workplace maybe 8 hours, 9 hours a day. So now you're talking about outside of the workplace, you've got still maybe 16 hours. You're probably gonna sleep, hopefully 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. So now maybe you're down to 8, 7, hours. Now with those 8, 7 hours that you have left, that's where you have to get those things done on your list that are outside the workplace. If you start to really get serious about how am I going to tackle those things on my list, how am I going to approach those things on my list, how am I going to prioritize those things on my list, and if I could eliminate half of my list, what would I be left with? And if I got those things done, like what are the main things? So I'm going to encourage you to shorten up your list. Because what's happening is, as I'm coaching people, working with people, I'm seeing people's lists, and sometimes they got 12 things on a list. And in that day, they're getting 1, 2, or 3 things done. 3 seems to be the magic number. And then they're frustrated even getting those 3 things done. They feel like they're not achieving enough even getting those 3 things done. If they even get those 3 things done, a lot of times it's 1 or 2 things, and then they're transferring those 10 things over and then piling another 3 or 4 things on, so now their list is back up to 14. And it's this constant pressure. And then what's everybody feel like? Everybody feels like, oh, you know, I'm going. Everybody feels that way. You know, when you talk to people and you ask them, you know, what's going on? It's kind of like that same thing. You know, I hear it all the time. Everybody feels that way. Everybody feels like, you know, they're going. You talk to somebody, be like, hey, what you been up to? Oh man, I've been super busy. I've been slammed. I've been going. But here's the thing, going where? Most people are going, but they're not going anywhere. They're not really getting anything done. It's like they're just chasing their tail. They're going in a circle. Why is that? Because they're loading up this list, it becomes overwhelming, and rather than face it and work on it and do it and even try to figure it out, it's like, you know what? This is too much. I'm just going to unplug and back away from the whole thing. And that's called the productivity killer. And that's what's hurting most people's productivity. So I'm going to recommend switch it up. Do less, but do less better. Sounds a little crazy, but I'm telling you, it's a productivity multiplier. If you start getting into that, you know, and like I said, I'm guilty of it. You know, I've piled my list, you know, 10 high, 10 wide, and I look at it and it's just, it's completely overwhelming, and then you just want to back away from it. So, you know, a few podcasts ago, I talked about, you know, how, you know, prioritizing that matrix, the 4 quadrants. You know, Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Stephen Covey. And on that, he talked about urgent, and important. So I covered that a couple podcasts back. Go back and listen to it if you're not familiar with it. But it's the same thing when you look at that list. I mean, if you can get that list down to 1, 2, or 3 things, 3 being the magic number, and then you know, like, okay, first things first, literally, first things first. Out of those 3 things, what's the most important thing, pressing thing that I need to get done that day? And then you can chunk your time. You know, if you give yourself some uninterrupted time, put your phone on Do Not Disturb, even in an hour, you'd be surprised. But what I find is with some projects, I mean, I've been thinking about myself, you know, working on projects that could take me 10 minutes. I can make them take 2 and 3 hours. You know, and if you're not willing to put in that D&D time, that Do Not Disturb, let me put my head down on this for 10 minutes, uninterrupted, complete 100% focused time, I guarantee you that you can do more in 10 minutes than sometimes you do in an hour. So what is the excuse for not getting more done? Because right now the excuse is I've got so much to do. But really you don't have so much to do, but it's almost like a game that we play with ourselves, because it feels like, well, if I got this big list, like I've got so much to do, and then we feel like we're doing so much, but we're actually not doing anything. Think about that person that you know right now, that friend, that family member, that coworker, you know, that seems like they're so busy, they're so overwhelmed, they've got so much going on. What do they really got going on? Most of the time, when you take a closer look, it's a whole lot of nothing. They're busy being busy instead of busy being productive. And so if you're looking at May and you're looking at June, you're looking at the rest of this year, you know, for some of you, you're going to take this information and you're going to actually get more done in the next 6 months than you have in the last 10, 16 to 16 months. You know, it will happen if you take that approach. And so I look at, you know, my 3 core things that I do. I have, you know, really 3 main things that I do. You know, and part of that's going to be, you know, physical. Part of that's going to be obviously my business, and I have like my personal, you know, area. And so because I'm running a company, I'm doing podcasting, I'm writing books, I'm traveling, speaking, I'm building a brand, I'm getting on here rapping with you guys, and I'm, you know, doing all these, you know, different things on social media. It seems like I'm super busy, but I still know, like, I have chunks of time, and I make some of these chunks of time. Sometimes the chunks move. Sometimes it might be a morning or an afternoon. I need 2 hours uninterrupted to do something, and I'll go on Do Not Disturb. And guess what? When I come off of Do Not Disturb, the world hasn't burned down. And some of us are so scared that we're going to miss something. You know, if you got your loved ones, you have kids, you have your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whoever, husband, wife, you know, they need to understand, hey, they can be more productive too. You know, but you need to carve out that time for them so you have your personal time. That means you're on Do Not Disturb from everything else. So Do Not Disturb, you can flip Do Not Disturb on your phone, but you can flip Do Not Disturb on any part of your life. And then physical. If you have the physical part where you're either working out, going to the gym, having sex, whatever it is you're doing, then that means you're Do Not Disturb on your business part of your life and the other part of your life. You know, so there's Do Not Disturb buttons that we need to flip on, chunks of time. And that little chunk of time, I'm telling you, it doesn't take all day to do most of the stuff that we're trying to get done. Some of it takes 10 minutes. Some of it takes 30 minutes. But if you give yourself an hour, guess how long it's going to take you? It's going to take you an hour. If you give yourself a week, a month, guess how long it's going to take you? A week or a month. You will find a way to fill the time. And a lot of that time will be wasted. But you need to put the pressure on yourself. Have the 1, 2, or 3 things that are most important to get done that day. Give yourself less time to get more done. And put Do Not Disturb as part of your time chunking, part of your time organization. And when you do that, I'm telling you, productivity goes through the roof. Productivity goes through the roof. I've been testing this out, you know, and getting a lot done is very possible. Getting a lot done isn't looking like you're getting a lot done. Getting a lot done is actually just being effective and strategic and picking the things that matter to get done, giving yourself less time and doing those things from start to finish. Not extending the time. You know, because if you do that, if you start saying, well, I'm just going to move the finish line. How many people do that? How many people move the finish line? How many people had something to do, right? And here's what I say. My rule of thumb is if you have something to do and it needs to get done, we put it on the calendar. Let's put it on the calendar. I can think of 2 things right now that need to be done that aren't getting done. And the reason that they're not getting done right now, 2 things I can think of. The reason that they're not getting done is because they're not on the calendar. They're not scheduled. They haven't been prioritized. So they're kind of just in limbo. They're on delay. And guess what happens? Guess what happens when you put things on delay? I'm going to tell you. What happens? What happens when you put things on delay? You could put your whole life on delay. You move the finish line. You give yourself another week. You delay it. You'll start delaying everything about your life, your health, your fitness, your wealth, your happiness, and ultimately you'll delay your success. Is that the kind of life that you want to live? Is that the kind of life that you want to lead? Is that the kind of legacy that you want to have? Is that the kind of example that you want to be for your kids, your family? Or do you want to be the ultimate example of getting things done? The ultimate example of doing what needs to be done when it needs to be done. And sometimes doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it. Because, why? Because you said you would. And so that's a tough one. And we all are working at this, guys. I'm working at this, you're working at this, we're all working at this. So hopefully you'll take some of this, what we talked about today, some of these productivity hacks, tips, whatever you want to call them, productivity maneuvers, and put them into practice, put them into play to ultimately lead a more productive day, which leads to a more productive week. You know, even back up, let's go a more productive hour, which leads to a more productive chunk of time or hours, block of hours, leads to a more productive day, leads to a more productive week, leads to a more productive month, leads to a more productive year, and leads to a more productive life. So hopefully you'll take these things and put them into play. So that's the message for this podcast. Do less, better. Do less, better. Do less better, ultimately, which will lead you to doing more and becoming more effective. And having the sense of completion, there's nothing else. I mean, it's a high when you complete something. You know, I was working on my first book, and when I completed it, there's nothing like it. Getting that business going, getting that deal done, getting that workout complete, getting that, you know, I just had a triathlon last week, the completion, crossing that finish line. It's just a high. You have a high. Yeah, you might be physically, mentally, whatever, exhausted, but you still have a high that you can ride on until the next event. So there's nothing like completion, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to get things done, complete tasks, not make up excuses. So hopefully you guys will take this and run with it. As always, I thank you guys for being here, listening to the podcast. If you haven't got your copy or copies of either of YFY books, make sure you do that. You can do that at yourfirstyearin.com. I sign them, seal them, and deliver them through the mail to you. And if you haven't left a review for the podcast in the podcast app, in the Apple Podcast Store, and if you do that, here's what the deal is. You're getting free swag. I've got these pretty sweet YFYI shirts. If you're watching on the video right now, video podcast alert, you can see the YFYI, I Heart YFYI shirt, exclusive swag. You get a free t-shirt for leaving a review on the podcast app. It takes about 24 hours for the review to be posted. And once I identify you, then I'm going to send you out your shirt. So if you want to get one of those, leave a review. The reviews help the podcast become discovered anywhere podcasts are found. Definitely, you can leave reviews anywhere. It doesn't only have to be an Apple. I know this podcast is on a few different platforms. And just want to thank all you guys that are watching the video version of the podcast, catching the before the scenes footage and the after I stop recording the audio. I keep the video going, so there's a little after scenes footage as well. So thank you guys who've been tuning in to the video version, whether it be on YouTube or on my Facebook page. I appreciate it. And what else? Oh, breaking news. If you have an Amazon, Echo, one of those Amazon devices in your home, there's a new skill in the Amazon Alexa app store they have. If you have the Amazon Alexa app, you go in there, look for skills. I just did a video, it's on my Instagram. But if you have one of those devices, I think it also works on the Amazon, on the Fire Stick. You have Alexa on there. And you can subscribe to different skills. I have a daily, Sunny D daily audio mashup. I do a daily few minutes, and you can enable that skill. So in the morning you can say, hey Alexa, what's my flash briefing? You can subscribe to a lot of different skills. I mean, I have mine in there. I'd love for you to subscribe to that, where I create exclusive content for the Alexa devices. We're moving in that direction, guys. Smart homes, smart devices. We're all going to be talking to devices in our home. I have an Alexa. I also have the Google Mini. I have both of them in my bathroom. So when I'm getting ready in the morning, I talk to them. What's my day looking like? Reminders, catch the news, catch a little, tip of the day. So that's it's called Flash Briefing, and it's on the Alexa app. You can find it under skills. If you have one of those devices in your home, love for you to subscribe to it, where you can also get some exclusive content from me coming there. So we'll be dropping all kinds of things in there. Eventually we'll have one, for different subjects, from beauty, motivation, education, business, different things like that. So I'd love for you to check it out. And as always, appreciate you guys listening to the YFYI podcast. This is the place you come to get your mind right, get your money right, get your learn on, so you can get your earn on. Or as I like to say, get a little checkup from the neck up. So thanks for listening, guys. And remember, this is the place where you come to learn how to build your business right once, or else you will be doomed to have to build it again. Thanks for listening, guys, and I will talk to you soon. Bam! Audio podcast in the books. So yeah, for you guys, all of my video viewers, the coolest thing about watching the video is you guys get a little behind the scenes look into like what's happening, what's going on in my brain. Sometimes I throw a little, extras in there, what's been going on. So I'm excited because if you guys are watching my Instagram story, you might have seen, I've got, some big news and big announcements coming. We at the Salon 1.0, our mission to become a global company. Global starts with one city at a time, starts with one state at a time, starts with one country at a time. But we've made a lot of progress in that arena. Some really awesome announcements coming as it pertains to our company expansion. We're looking at right now developing a strategy where we're going to be taking the Salon 1.0 locations nationwide. You guys are hearing a little bit about it here first. Literally, I've been sitting on this for a while. It's been a deal in the making over the past year. Got some great partners I'll introduce to you guys here in the near future. Exact locations, opening dates and things like that will be coming soon. But if you are interested in joining the Salon 1.0 and our project as we roll out a nationwide commitment to all of these different cities, just get in touch with me, let me know. I've already been doing some recruiting, not only here in Florida, but in other parts of the country. So it's gonna be an amazing thing. It's gonna be an amazing experience. And we have this, we're right on the cusp of it. I mean, pretty much the deal is done. So we'll be announcing cities and states and locations in probably the coming weeks. You'll hear some big announcements coming. So you guys that hang out and watch the video and catch the after action lowdown, you're hearing some of this exclusively, so shh, don't tell anyone. Awesome. Thank you guys for watching. As always, share the video, let me know, give me feedback, give me comments, get in touch, stay in touch, and I will see you guys on the next episode. Peace.